want to start with something I need you to understand about why I show up here every single day. I don't create content, I provide value to people who need to grow. In turn, through what I offer them, and I build a system that generates the resources to keep doing it at scale. Every day produces. That is the recalibrated anchor. Not views, not followers, not the approval of an algorithm. Daily value, daily production, daily service to the one soul behind the screen who is ready to receive what I am here to offer. Today, what I am here to offer is the honest answer to the question nobody in the healing space answers correctly. Why does healing feel like loss before it feels like freedom? I need to speak to you about the phase that doesn't make the highlight reels. Not the breakdown that begins everything. The phase gets talked about, gets validated, gets the sympathetic comment section and the community of people who recognize the darkness and offer their own as company. Not the breakthrough that gets celebrated. The moment of clarity, the shift that comes, the story you tell about how everything changed. I want to talk about the in-between. The phase after the past and before the breakthrough has fully arrived. The strange, disorienting, structurally unglamorous middle ground where you have done enough genuine work to stop being who you were, but you haven't yet solidified enough into who you are becoming to feel stable inside the new shape. You followed the protocols. You did the shadow work. You regulated the nervous system. You made the difficult choices about which relationships to release and which patterns to interrupt. You chose yourself with a consistency that cost you real things, real connections, real comfort, real familiarity. You did everything the healing content told you to do. And you feel more lost than when you started. I need to tell you what is actually happening in that lostness. Because the healing content that got you here has almost universally failed to prepare you for it. And that failure That gap between what the content promised the healing would feel like and what the healing actually feels like is costing people their entire transformation. And they reach the in between field, the lostness. Conclude that they must have done something wrong, or taken a wrong turn, or simply that healing isn't working for them, and they go back, they rebuild the old patterns because at least the old patterns had a shape they recognized. At least the dysfunction came with a community of people who understood the language of the previous version of themselves. That going back is the greatest tragedy in the entire healing space. Not because the old patterns are evil or irredeemable, but because the going back happens at exactly the moment when the transformation is most complete and most irreversible. The lostness that feels like failure is actually the final symptom of the dissolution before the new architecture begins to solidify. Let me show you the biology of what's actually happening. Identity is not just psychological, it is physical. Your nervous system builds literal neural pathways around your patterns, your habitual responses, your predictable reactions, your automatic ways of navigating relationships and rooms and moments of threat or intimacy. These pathways are physical structures in your biology. They have weight, they have momentum. They have a kind of gravitational pull that makes the familiar feel not just comfortable but inevitable. When you begin to genuinely heal, not just think about healing, not just consume healing content, but actually change the biological architecture, those pathways begin to dissolve. The physical structures built around the old patterns start to break down. And breaking down physical structures, even structures that were hurting you, produces a specific somatic experience. It feels like loss, not metaphorical loss, not psychological loss, biological loss. The felt sense of something structurally present becoming structurally absent. The nervous system registering the dissolution of its own familiar architecture as a threat to its integrity rather than as the liberation it actually is. This is why you can know intellectually that you are growing and still feel profoundly disorientedly lost. The knowledge lives in your cortex, the grief lives in your nervous system. And the nervous system does not respond to intellectual reassurance. It responds to signal, to biological evidence that the dissolution is not destruction, that what is being lost was scaffolding rather than structure. That was emerging on the other side of the dissolution is more solid, more sovereign, more genuinely you than anything the old pathways could have supported. I look at what I am building here with complete honesty. 200 subscribers on YouTube, 178 followers on TikTok, Rumble's building from zero, 27 people who found the free reset, one who walked the complete path. Building this from €23 toward €250,000 by September 2027. Every day produces, every video is a deposit into a system that serves the people who need it and generates the resources to reach them at greater scale. The gap between tens of thousands of views and 27 people who move this, the in-between operating at scale. Most people watching this content are in exactly the phase I am describing, dissolved enough from their old identity to feel the lostness, not yet solidified enough in the new one to trust the direction. And from inside that phase, every unfamiliar step looks like one more thing to lose in a season that has already taken everything familiar. So they watch. They return. They feel the recognition land accurately every single time. And they stay in the observer position because the observer position doesn't require them to take one more step in a direction that already feels like walking in fog. I understand that position completely. I have stood in it. The fog is real. The lostness is real. The grief of the dissolution is real, and it deserves to be named as grief rather than reframed immediately into spiritual advancement. But here is what the fog is and what it isn't. The fog is the biological experience of being between neural architectures, between the old pathways that have dissolved and the new ones that are forming. It is not directionlessness. It is the specific disorientation of a nervous system that has released its old map before the new map has fully rendered. The map is rendering soul. The fog is the rendering process. And no amount of going back to the old territory makes the new map appear faster. It only restores a map you have already genuinely outgrown. What accelerates the rendering is not more content, not more frameworks, not more intellectual understanding of the healing process, layered on top of a nervous system still experiencing the dissolution. What accelerates it is one thing: a stable biological reference point that doesn't move while everything else is restructuring. A consistent signal of safety available to your nervous system during the dissolution, so that it can complete the breakdown of the old architecture without triggering the survival response that sends you back to rebuild it. That is the precise function of the mirror practice, not the rush you through the in-between, not to perform healing for an audience or produce a transformation narrative with a clean arc. To be the one thing that stays constant and regulated and sovereign while your internal landscape is between its old shape and its new one. 27 people have found that constant. One has stayed long enough to feel the new architecture solidify completely. The reset is free. 1 minute of biological signal to a nervous system in the fog. Not reassurance, not information, but actual somatic contact with the evidence that regulation is available even inside the dissolution. The full mirror practice is €19. It is the complete anchor system for the in-between. You aren't lost, soul. You are between. And the between is disorienting and unglamorous and uninstagrammable as it is the most important phase in the entire transformation. The old architecture had to dissolve completely before the new one could be built on ground that would actually hold it. Stay in the fog. The map is rendering. Drop between in the comments if you are in the phase right now and nobody around you has a name for what you are experiencing. I am Tudor. My anchor is recalibrated. Every day produces. I'll see you when the map finishes rendering.